So the topic of our webinar for today is learn how to apply Kanban practices and create an impact in your organization, in your team, and make them more agile. Before we start on how to apply the Kanban practices, let's look at one of the job advertisements for an agile coach that you typically see on LinkedIn or any other job postings. The responsibilities would say facilitate learning and development of agile, coach senior managers and leaders in agile practices, communicate agile principles and Scrum practices and use metrics, and they also tell you to become either a Scrum Master or product owners, so that you can hold stand-up meetings and other agile ceremonies. But they also bring up the aspect of project delivery. So you're not only the agile coach who is developing the culture of agile, but you're also responsible for or ensuring that the projects or the initiatives that the company or the team is working on, they are also delivered smoothly and within the expectations. Now, this is a very wide responsibility. Let's look at the skills. They will ask you for some years of experience. They want you to be expert in all methodologies, be it Scrum, be it Kanban, be it SAFe. And they might also ask you about Scrumban. And they want that you have a track record of implementing these agile techniques. A track record of implementing Scrum by the book, Kanban by the book, and you should have at least some certificates. Now you go with high hopes over there, thinking that you will apply all your Scrum by the book, Kanban by the book, SAFe by the book. People will follow it and you will be able to implement the agile techniques. And that will be all. But when you enter this organization, you see this burn down chart. There is no work until half the sprint. Suddenly the work has been added and not finished. Or you see something like this. The team keeps on working, and never finishes. At the end of the day, they completely close the stories. And still, half of the work is still pending over there. And then you have to apply the agile techniques. You'll have to run the daily Scrum meetings. You'll have to look at the impediments so that you can get a better burn down chart. So usually we pass through any or all of the three stages that I'm going to talk about right now. Number one, you consider yourself as a snowman and take the responsibility, I will bail out the team from the clutches of the agile anti-patterns. Team, start following the Scrum, Kanban, SAFe. Start attending the meetings on time. Make sure you estimate in backlog grooming. So you fight. Why is this definition of ready not aligned? Why do you give us unplanned work in the sprint? Why do you not update Jira? You focus, you fight with your product owners. We need more time to refine. In a monthly planning, you fight with your leaders. It is not possible to list all the dependencies within 2 days. And sometimes they tell you to follow some of the practices which are not mentioned in the Scrum guide. You challenge the sprint goal. You fight for implementing all the techniques, all the knowledge you have earned in your certifications. That is the first stage. Then comes the second stage. You run away. You fought to apply all these practices, but the team is not improving at all. So the leadership is continuously putting a pressure on you. Where is the delivery? So you run away, you try to find another job where leadership supports agile. So you flight and you give yourself some reasons like this is waterfall. I will better find another job so that I can use my agile certificates. The leadership is not lying. They want a project coordinator, not an agile coach. I can't make the plans and track the plans. There's a reorg happening, cost cutting happening. It is not an agile culture, it is just a feature factory. You give yourself all these reasons and you want to flight. Then maybe if you don't get a job somewhere timely, then you go to the third stage. Or you directly go to the third stage. Freeze. I can't do much. Let's go how it is being done. Just don't bring the change to what they are doing right now. Oh, you didn't finish your sprint work on time? Let's extend by 2 days. Well, we need to release it, right? Can you make burn down graph better? Yeah, sure. It's just piece of how to reduce the story points. Just deliver. They will ask you to get the pizza. They'll ask you for the party visit for which you'll go to the leadership and fight. Oh, it's agile. Agile team needs motivation. So can you give us some of the party budget? So you freeze. You follow what they're doing right now because you think you can't change anything. So you fight, flight, or freeze. But I have a better way. But it is not a pill. So it's not just a medicine that I'll give it to you or a formula or the list of practices that I will give it to you and then, everything will be okay and you will be able to create an impact. Or this is not such a pill that you will give it to your team so that they start listening to you. It is the change management principles of Kanban. So Kanban method gave us 3 change management principles, which is start with where you are. So with Kanban, we start by developing and visualizing what are we doing right now? What process are we following right now? What are the current ways of working? And then we agree to pursue evolutionary change. We find out what are the improvements. And then you make the information so transparent, so visible, so that every team member can take a decision on what to improve. Then the improvements are identified and implemented. So start where you are. You understand your current processes as they are practiced right now. You respect the existing roles. You don't change them. You don't change the responsibilities. You don't change the job titles because they will bring resistance in the system. You agree to pursue smaller changes only with which and the entire team is comfortable with. Small incremental changes. And you make sure that people are a little comfortable with being a bit uncomfortable. They have to unlearn their practices that they're following right now and learn new practices that are more relevant for the work they're doing currently, that will improve their delivery to the customer. So you start with these change management principles. So we are talking here about the evolutionary change. You're not here to bring a revolution. You're not taking an ape to a human being. You are creating an evolutionary change. Humans are already here. So you don't have to change their roles, responsibilities. They are already doing a good job. You just need to find out where the bottleneck is, where the blocker is, and then change it. So how should you start? First of all, create self-awareness. and identify what are the sources of dissatisfaction in the team with the customer. Why? So when you create self-awareness, when you do this exercise of source of dissatisfaction, internally you become aware of the fact that your customer is not happy, and then generates empathy. This source of dissatisfaction is the first step in the static approach, systems thinking approach of introducing Kanban. So whenever you enter as agile coach in your organization, or if you are handling the team right now, first of all, do this exercise, which is identifying why is your team dissatisfied. Why are your customers dissatisfied? What are their problems? They will give you a list. Find out what are the top 3 problems that you want to handle, so that you get some motivation for change, so that your team gets some motivation for change. It's not any other agile change that is happening. It is not like a radarless ship. You have an objective to achieve as a team. This exercise will give you an objective, a purpose to become agile. What would you do next? You will visualize. Visualize how do you do the work right now. You might have already have a sprint board, or you might have a Azure board, Jira board. Find out, is that board visualizing everything that you do? Does it have all the workflow stages over there? Is there invisible work that is not known, but the team is still doing it? So this is one real example of visualization. Visualization of the existing processes. The board, the initial board for this particular team said to do in progress testing, configure, deploy, deliver, and done. But when we visualize the existing processes, we found 17 different types of testing, 4 different types of migration. So what is that flow of work? You have to visualize the flow of work. You can see the flow of work in the purple arrows. There are 2 different flows of work leading to one outcome. What is the invisible work? Where is that invisible work which is not there on the board, which only a few people know, and also it becomes a blocker? What are the current practices? Do they create a sprint plan? Do they create the user stories? Do they do the estimation? What are the current practices that they have? Where is the duplicate effort so that you can create your processes lean? How does the demand of work look like? How many such work types come at what frequency? What are the different types of work that the team has to do? So find out, when you visualize this existing process, keep an eye on all these questions, on all these elements, so that you understand where the problem is, so that you can understand the complexity of the work that they are doing, the complexity of the workflow stages where the knowledge is being added, and where it is taking more time, where it is aging more. Find that out. So when you visualize, you will understand, first of all, you will understand how they work right now. You'll get trust with the team. They will be able to share where the problem is. You will be able to identify the blockers. And then you will be able to improve the processes by removing the waste, or at least you have some of the action items that you can take to the managers, to the team, to make their processes lean. And then you have to apply the evolutionary change formula. What is that formula? You have to identify the stressor. So this formula is a 3-step formula. First is you have to find out what is stressing you most. What is it that is troubling you daily? Why is the team so much stressed that they're not able to complete the work? Within the iteration boundary, without the iteration boundary, it doesn't matter. Find out what is that stressor. What are they worried about? Then reflect upon it and then create some leadership. Let's go to the first step, which is stressor. So when you find out what is troubling your team, why is your team not happy, there's something that you'll find what is that problem that hurts. In the right circle, it hurts. What is it that hurts? And then you have to reflect upon it. Why it hurts? Is it because of the people? Is it because of the processes? Is it because of the tools? Is it because of the bad practices? Is it because we don't have collaboration? What is that? What is it? Why is it? What is the cause of it? Find the root cause. Then you reflect upon the problem, find out, and then you find out the solutions. What are the various ways to handle this stressor that you have? What are the various ways? Not one way, there could be multiple ways of removing the stressor. What are the various ways to remove that stressor? Evaluate the difficulty for each of those solutions. How difficult it is to implement in your organization, in your team. Who all will provide resistance against that change or against that improved process or against that improved practice. Then you design the experiment and run it. But before you run that experiment, you have to do one more exercise. You have to understand from where all will the resistance come. So when you change the process, who all will resist that change? It will be an incremental change, but still you might have some resistance in your organization that will lead to failure of that process improvement step. And you will be reduced to freeze state. So before you actually suggest what can be done,
Nice.
Before you,
Nice.
so before you suggest what can be done, you have to make sure that you run the exercise for overcoming the resistance, so that you can understand what all resistance can be, who can provide, who can resist, who will be resisting your changes, who will be resisting your processes. Now, why do people resist? It's not the fault of your team, of your agile culture or organizational culture. Why do people resist? They resist because we human beings think from two perspectives, which is system 1 and system 2. And the system 1 and system 2 perspective was given by Daniel Kahneman, who's a Nobel laureate. He said system 1 is a perspective when people think emotionally. And system 2 is a logical perspective. So whenever a change is given to you, you think from system 1 perspective, emotionally, which is based on your past experiences. So you think from emotional perspective and you resist that change. Now that change is for your better, for improving your processes, for your betterment, but you don't think logically at that time when a change is being given to you. System 2 perspective is a logical thinking which takes more time, more energy. So that is why when I say run the experiment, Make sure when you run the experiment, you first of all do the exercise of identifying from who all, where all would you get the resistance to this change that you're proposing in your team, in your organization. And you will find out that there are multiple types of resistances that your team or organization provides. One could be emotional resistance, another could be logical resistance. Try to segregate the resistance, the list of resistance that you get into emotional versus logical, because you have to handle both of them separately. So when it comes to emotional resistance, you have to create a mitigation plan. You can't push, you can't play with the emotions of the people. In IT industry, people are the core team. You can't play with their emotions. For them to be productive, they have to be happy. So you have to create a mitigation plan to handle that emotional resistance. For any logical resistance, you have to prepare a logical argument. So you don't have to push, you have to flow. And don't forget to measure. But what would you measure? Something that will create some action item out of it. Measure your capability to deliver. Measure your capability to deliver value to the customer is the right statement. Is a complete statement. Measure when you deliver value to the customer, not there is no point in measuring the handoffs. Handoffs from the dev team to the testing team to the delivery deployment team. There is no point in handling your iteration, in measuring your iterations. Measure how many iterations you took from when you started the work and when the customer is able to use it, which is where you're providing value to the customer. Now, there are two most important metrics that you might want to consider. One is time to market, and another is time to deliver. What is time to market? It depends upon how you define it. But usually, it starts when the request for the work is or service is raised. As soon as the customer or the stakeholder has mentioned about some of the work or the request that has to be done and created a ticket in Jira or Azure DevOps and put it on the backlog, from there your time starts. And up till it ends, up till the value has been delivered to the customer is able to use it. Whereas time to deliver is when the development team starts working on it. Up till when the customer has started using it. So these are two most important metrics that you have to use, which is time to market and the time to deliver. So the first step, so if I go back so that you haven't forgotten it. So first step, how you start is, first of all, you create self-awareness. Find out what is troubling the team, the customer. And this will create some self-awareness and empathy. The second step is visualize. Visualize the current practices, visualize the current process, visualize the invisible work, the different types of work, how the demand of those work comes in, visualize where the duplicate effort is, visualize the entire process. When you visualize this process, put up this formula, which is finding out the stressor, finding out the solutions out of it, and then implementing or running that experiment. But before you run the experiment, you have to find out who can resist that change. And then to find that out, who can resist it, that change, what are the various resistances that you can get within your system, you have to do this exercise of finding out what are the emotional and the logical resistance that you can get from your team. And then the last one is, don't forget to measure. Measure value to your customers. Find out What is your time to market, time to deliver? You can name them whatever you want: lead time, cycle time, customer lead time, system lead time, whatever your leaders are happy with, whatever your team is happy with. Don't worry too much about the nomenclature. Measure the time when the customer requested and when the customer is able to use it. Plot it on a histogram. And when you plot it on a histogram, you might see such kind of histogram pattern. Now you can see the variation in this histogram. On the x-axis is the cycle time from 0 days to 345 days, almost a year. And then on the y-axis is number of tasks done, odd number of features delivered, other stories delivered. Now don't be surprised with this data, because you might find this data in many of the organizations, many of the teams. It's just that they haven't got an agile coach like you who can create an impact, who can control this, or who can make it at least visible. Now again, when you see this, don't get surprised. As I said, try to find out and break the problem into smaller pieces. So don't just go and represent this graph to your leadership. Try to find out, first of all, infer, collect data, find out what the root cause is. Because the leadership or your team doesn't want you to bring the problem, they want you to bring a solution to a problem. This is a better matrix than correcting a camel hump shaped burn down chart, because it gives you time, it gives the matrix actual time that you took to deliver the work to your customers. So now how would you categorize this histogram? So look at the tail, the bars, histograms which are towards the right. Find out why are they taking so much time? What are the reasons behind it? There could be many reasons, right? They might be waiting on someone, or they were meant to be taking so much time, or they just slipped in the crevices and we forgot about it. Oh, and then one day remembered, why is this technical debt created? Oh yeah, we had one ticket, we didn't complete it. Let's complete it now. Or no one wanted to work on it at a later stage. So you also dropped working on it. The team also dropped working on it, and it took longer. It got deprioritized every time. Find out why is that? Why is it taking longer time? Do the root cause analysis. Then look at the histogram again. Find out what are the peaks. Why the histograms have a peak? And if they have more than one peak, then certainly you have to find out why they have more than one peaks. What is happening on that day? Why are so many items getting completed? For example, in this graph on 41st day, what is it that is happening? Is it the same type of work? Or is it we have some flaw in our processes that we are closing all the tickets suddenly on 41 days? And then find out why is the condensation there of many peaks between 16 to 29 days. Now, till now, you have not set up any expectations with your team. Till now, you are not blaming anyone for completing the work faster or slower. You are just analyzing the data. You are just observing. You are giving some tools to them to become self-aware. You are giving the tools to them. You are facilitating to find out what are the root cause of the problems. Till now, you are still finding out what the problem is. What actually you have to solve, what actually the team has to work upon. So just don't go and implement a 2-week sprint review, a 2-week sprint cycle, First of all, find out what does agility mean to them. And then put everything together. So whatever exercises that you did with your team, it might take some time. For example, identifying the sources of dissatisfaction, understanding the flow, finding out what are the resistances, finding out the measurement, what experiment you can run, put them all together, and you will discover magical insights, which when you take to your team, they will appreciate you, recognize you, acknowledge you, and respect your effort that you did to find those insights. And then they will ask you to create a plan of action and improve. You brought so many insights. You know the root cause of the problem. You have discussed with the team what experiment, what changes you can provide, you can do as a team. So they will ask you to create a plan of action so that the team can improve. But my dear, this is a trap. Don't fall for it. So whatever good work that you have done, if you start creating a plan and improvement, you are again back to fight, flight, and freeze. So you must be surprised with what I am saying over here. Look at the third principle of Kanban. Act of leadership at all levels. The third step in the evolutionary change formula, leadership. It's not your leadership. It's not that you have to lead that plan. You have to enable the team to decide what improvement area they have to do, and they have to lead it. You have to make them a bit comfortable with being a bit uncomfortable. You have to make them unlearn their practices because it is them who are going to improve the process. It is not you. We don't want a diplomatic environment in the organization. We want a collaborative environment. So if you create a plan, you are directing them and you will fail again. Instead, ask them to create the plan so that they can work towards improving it. You will facilitate it. You will enable them to create the plan. For example, you will conduct more root cause analysis exercises. You will help them identify what are the improvement areas. You will help them remove the impediments. You will help them talk to the leadership wherever required. You will create the budget for the tools if they need them. You will work with them to improve their culture, to improve the practices, but you will not create the plan, you will not execute it. They will create the plan, they will execute it. You have to make sure the information is so much visible that they themselves can identify what needs to change. No one has to tell them. That is how you create a team, a self-managed team. Scrum Master does not create a self-managed team. Scrum Master enable the team to create so that the team can become a self-managed team. You can't direct them and still call them a self-managed team. So to recap, so if you want to be a successful agile coach or you want to bring a successful change in your organization, follow these steps. First, identify the source of dissatisfaction, create some self-awareness, then visualize the work, then bring an evolutionary change by looking at the formula, finding out a stressor, running an experiment, finding out why there could be a resistance, and then bringing out some measurements around the lead time, and then analyzing this lead time distribution chart to find out what could be the observations, what are the inferences, what could be the problems, and then asking the team to create that plan. So that is all we had in this webinar. If you want to learn more, you can attend the 4-day KMP workshop. It is called as a Kanban Management Professional Workshop. It is from the Kanban University. You get a lifetime free certificate once you attend it. I'm also conducting a in-person KP workshop in Dubai. It's on November 20th, 21st, 27th, 28th. In case you want to attend it, you can visit kanbandubai.com, or you can call me at or WhatsApp me on 547836151. If you are interested in online classes, online workshops, go to EasyLearningTre.com. Find the Kanban workshop and register in that, or you can call Rajiv or send the email to him at rajiv@easylearningtree.com, or you can speak to me or send me an email. So that was all. Any